Welcome to Riverdale After Dark, a podcast about the CW's Riverdale that is broadcast directly from a tiny house. I'm Alex.
In the mirror realm, anything can happen. Hairstyles and outfits can change like when you want, so look at the bustier I'm wearing. I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are going to be talking about Riverdale Season 6, Episode 8, Chapter 103, The Town. Now, brief bit of recap to bring you up to speed here. I'm going to try.
All right, you said brief, so let's just let him
there we
have
go.
some
Everybody has
time.
superpowers, and Cheryl's trapped in a mirror. The end. We got it. We're good to go.
Good. That is pretty good.
Yes, Betty has lured her arch nemesis, the trash bag killer, out of town to keep everybody safe, so she is mostly not in this episode. However, she has developed the power to see evil auras and at the same time is getting migraines, so that's a little bit of information. Hold on to that for the end of the episode. Archie has also gotten powers. He is super strong. He is invincible, but his kryptonite is a mineral element? I don't know. Called palladium, something like that. Whatever it is. And there's one more person with powers who is Jughead Jones. As we discovered at the end of the last episode, he has lost his hearing but gained the ability to hear people's thoughts, which he uses quite a bit this episode. One other character you should know about is Percival Pickens, a new, potentially evil businessman. Maybe a good guy. But maybe a good guy with some interesting ideas. I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh, that's awful, dude.
Has shown up in town. He is the ancestor of General Pickens. However, he has an English accent, which we delve into further this episode.
Well, it's interesting you say ancestor, because I think he's technically a descendant. But what if he is some sort of immortal dude with issues? That's just to
kill him.
Yeah, could be. Could be. Let's get more into that in a second. Moving over to the Cheryl Blossom side of things, her body has been taken over by her ancestor. I got that correct this time. Abigail Blossom, who is gunning for Toni Topaz, who reminds her of her lady love back in the day. Thomasina Topaz, another ancestor of Toni. Still getting it correct? Yeah.
Crushing it.
Great.
I'm not trying to correct you. You inspired me with an idea.
Seems
like this
facts
is
wrong.
correction.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
No, we do corrections at the end.
Okay, in the footnotes of the podcast. Yeah. So she has banished Cheryl, except as we found out in the last episode, Cheryl is actually trapped in some sort of mirror dimension. Again, we delve further into that. Britta, who is Cheryl's young ward, discovered this information, and also Nana Rose, who summoned Abigail in the first place and got rid of Cheryl, has been thrown in a room full of hay, which is definitely not a barn, and I'm going to double down it.
It's a cool ranch.
It's a cool ranch, as we learned last episode. But no matter what it is,
Pete's got one weight under his belt.
I'm just milking that fucker.
Yeah,
that's it.
There you go.
She is thriving in that barn area. Whatever you want to.
She could eat. She's doing great. She's doing amazing.
She's just chewing the cud.
Yep. Meanwhile, a couple of other characters we should mention. Reggie and Veronica have started a casino at Hiram Lodge. Veronica's father died due to a hit that she called on him. We had his funeral the last episode. And also in the last episode, we met a helper of Veronica's grandma, who is named Geraldo.
The Iceman.
The Iceman.
The Iceman. And he shows up again this episode. And Tabitha works at Pops, which seems to be doing fine after being burnt down. Toni manages the White Worm, which is under Pops. Toni and Fangs are together. And Kevin is working, I guess, as a deputy for his dad.
It's not funny anymore. This episode went too far. It's the shitting on Kevin has gone too far. This is just... There's no need for it to be Kevin. You didn't have to make it Kevin.
Here's what I've learned. Okay, if you want to jump right to that, because I'm sure there's other things we need to recap, but Kevin at a certain point gets clocked in the head, clocked by Doc with a hammer. Doc clock. Gets hit with a hammer, and I will say, funny. I understand you're upset.
He
but
gets
at the same
hammered.
Time,
he gets hammered.
No,
Betty, Archie, and Jughead got blown up,
guys.
and they got powers. So maybe this is how you get powers.
No,
maybe Kevin is.
Kevin has gone through too much. It's just not funny. Make it somebody else. Come on, like you can't keep doing this to Kevin. You can't do it to Kevin.
Who would you rather? There's no other character.
I mean, come on.
Everybody else has been hit in the head with a hammer so far. So
poor Kevin, man.
It would be repetitive storytelling.
Oh. It's too much.
I think it makes sense. He's a deputy. He's a target now. He's in law enforcement. He's a father. He's hammered. And now he's got Percival is going to be his partner. Awful. He's deputized.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful.
Why don't we walk through this episode? And I think we can kind of walk through it bit by bit because there is actually a lot of crisscrossing storylines this episode, which is nice to see. Always appreciate that on the old Riverdale. But the big thing we kick off with is Jughead delving more into his powers. Specifically, he can hear everybody's thoughts as they're about to say them, so is pretending that he can actually hear even though he can't hear. What do you think about this development in general and how it plays out during the episode?
Well, it makes me... I thought it was cool the way they sort of showed it to us. It does sort of negate the whole hearing loss thing in a way. Like after he explains it at the top of the episode, he's just floating along fine.
Yeah.
So at that part, I don't quite understand why it went, because he could have just not lost his hearing and started being able to hear people's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think this gets into a frequent debate we have about the show is when they delve into realistic storylines, how much they should stick with it. And the answer here is not much. I mean, they don't do it very much, which is a bummer because I think it was treated so emotionally and well and grounded in the last episode. I do think there's a way to have him be grappling with his new deafness, but at the same time being able to hear people's thoughts. But like you said, they kind of jump past. That said, to throw something else even further, maybe you're about to say the same thing. Both Betty and Archie, as they develop their powers, have hit some stumbling blocks. We see that very clearly with Betty this episode. Archie also, it's not immediately clear, like he has the palladium weakness, but Jughead is exploring his powers this episode. I do wonder if there's going to be a downside to them in the next episode.
Did you want to just keep doing the whole podcast by yourself and do all the counterpoints? I would love to.
Absolutely. That would be great.
Do we get to say anything about this?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Well, Pete, I started to tell you this. You're trapped in a mirror realm. So it's going to be hard for you to talk to anybody unless we become dream warriors, which I'm working on.
Pete, get the wire hangers, Pete.
No,
Pete.
Come on. That was too much, man.
You got scared of
Penelope. That was heartbreaking. That was heartbreaking.
While we're talking about Jughead and powers, I think eventually this season is going to arc toward them losing or giving up their powers as it becomes a problem. And then I think all of this underlying stuff will become important again.
Well, I mean, the whole rom-com of it all, like the kind of like when you can hear women's thoughts, I just think it means Jughead's going to fall back in love again soon, and then he is
in love with Tabitha.
You have to stop.
Himself,
you really have to stop. Listen. I understand what you're getting at. I'm not saying Bughead is never going to come back, but at this point, Tabitha and Jughead are in a relationship. They seem very. No
let me,
way.
I'm in total denial about it.
Okay.
Cool. It's a long way around the barn to reference the late 90s movie What Women Want as your means of getting Bughead
Mel
back.
Gibson, one of the worst humans alive currently. So thanks, Pete.
Yeah, I'm not
really buoying up your point there.
I was trying not to bring that up, but
you literally are the one who brought that up.
Yeah, but
I don't know if you were trying not to bring it up.
I was trying to skip that part of it, but
you're really the Mad Max of this podcast, Pete.
No. That's true.
What has happened?
This podcast is a Thunderdome.
We barely get any Barchie in this. You get like a half a hug, and I was like, yeah. So that means.
Well, I will
Jughead's
say,
rising.
as we're continuing to jump around, you get a half a hug at the end of the episode, but. As several folks pointed out on Twitter, they have broken the 2-episode curse at this point, that Barchie would pop up for an episode and then disappear. They're still going strong at the end of this episode, and by all indications,
I know, no,
it'll be for several
going
episodes
strong.
to go.
They haven't
Barchie's
seen
strong.
each other the whole time. It was like 5 seconds at the end. It was like a hug, like, oh yeah, you're still around. I can't really deal with you.
How do relationships work in your life, Pete? You have to be with the partner every minute of the day?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
you don't know this.
You have
Justin.
sort of you have a first grade understanding
you
of
don't
boyfriend
know this 'cause
girlfriend.
you
Pete's
travel the
girlfriend is
world.
on the other side of the Zoom right now, staring at him because otherwise his object permanence just allows him to think that she's broken up with him, right, Pete?
Yeah, she's the only one who tethers me to this realm.
Oh, man,
Oh wow! The idea of someone watching Pete on this podcast being like, "Perfect, thumbs up." No notes.
Doing
no,
great.
Yeah.
Cool ranch, baby.
Just like say
Just holding
Cool
up, like,
Ranch
Cool
again.
Ranch,
That was
yeah,
a
say
win.
Cool- yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Get
Okay.
in trouble, go back to the ranch.
Jughead and Tabitha going strong. Betty and Archie going strong. Maybe it'll change at some point in the future, but cool ranch it on your agenda for a second, Pete, as we continue to walk through the episode, because then we get an opening montage. There's an article in what I believe is the high school newspaper.
Of course, that's where all the best stuff happens.
Gas.
Yeah.
Woo!
The adult who manages the high school newspaper, that being Jughead, allowed another adult, Percival Pickens, to publish an op-ed in the high school newspaper titled Riverdale, Worst
When
Town in
you're
America.
out of ideas,
and everybody got upset.
You'll just take letters from some random person.
And here's the thing. He's not wrong.
What?
Right?
You're on
Riverdale-
Percival's side.
Yeah,
Strong.
You're on the evil
I'm not
dude side?
saying where Percival ends up in terms of bussing homeless people out of town. Obviously not a solution. Also, tiny houses, and that's it. Not just a solution.
Okay, whoa,
but is
whoa.
Percival wrong? We have watched 5+ seasons of the show right now. Riverdale is the worst town in America.
I don't know who is monitoring your side of this Zoom podcast, Alex, but they should put a big thumbs down.
Yeah.
Percival Pickens is over there. He's like, cool ranch, baby.
Riverdale has its struggles, and sure, there's been more murders and suicides there, as we see in this episode, than most major metropolitan areas in the country / world. But this town has a little something different, and that's called pep.
Oh, I hadn't really thought about the pep. You are right.
Well, have you thought about the pep? Because I
thought
don't know
about
any
pep?
other
I didn't
towns.
consider there. Yeah.
No towns in America have as much pep. And I guess
Also,
pep is drama.
Alex, they weren't just like single-filedly put on a bus and given $100. That's just what he said. It means him. Officer Keller probably pulled out his gun and like made people run for their lives. And like it got fucking bad, dude. Don't make it seem like, oh, they're gone. Oh, that must have happened really nicely and peacefully.
Well, we talked about Percival last time, and we made the connection to the Music Man, and I think that's fully what we're getting in this episode. Sort of a more evil version of that, where he can actually make people do what he says when he by influencing them.
Well, and another reference that we talked about in the last episode was Needful Things, the Stephen King book, and it's not exactly the same one for one, but in that book, it's the same sort of thing where like this guy presents deals to people and they take them, and of course they end up terribly. So this is getting a little far afield from Pete, implying that they had a wood chipper inside the bus and they were just walking into a wood chipper, and then Pops is going to start serving homeless man burgers. Right, Pete? Is that where you're getting at?
Meat pies.
Meat pies. Oh, it's a Sweeney
Oh,
Todd.
nice. Look at this. What a musical lexicon we have. Well, and also we don't 100% know that he's the bad guy here, because as Doc, after he takes the swipe at Kevin with the hammer and is put in jail, his
Jesus
only
Christ, man.
clue
Come on.
is that it might have been someone with a British accent. So it could be anybody
What
with
do
a
you think
British
of
accent.
anybody?
Do you think it's Piers Morgan?
Yeah, Piers Morgan, great. Ricky Gervais, the
Mr.
Queen.
Bean.
Let's not leave the Queen out.
She's been missing a whole lot.
Wait,
Maybe
did you
she's
say
in Riverdale.
Mr. Bean?
Mr.
How
Bean,
dare you?
Rowan
Mr.
Atkinson.
Bean, famously not the chattiest of British accented people. I don't know if you're familiar with
we can rule out Mr. Bean. On our
Yeah,
list.
always rule out Mr. Bean.
I'm going to go to my murder board, which is on the other side of me, next to Percival Pickens, and I'm going to pull Mr. Bean off of the board. And
Thank you.
All British people are suspects. I thought it was very funny throughout this episode how much they were like, this accent. In Riverdale, they don't have any prestige television.
Legit, I think he is a really good villain, and he is maybe the part of this season that I'm enjoying the most so far. The way Chris O'Shea, who's the actor, is playing him, I think it's just great. Like there's something to his smirk, his smile, his delivery. There's little lines throughout. There was that scene where he's sitting down with Archie after the town hall meeting, and Archie's like, hey, let's, put our stuff aside. Let's figure out how we can reach a middle ground here. But he asks him, oh, did you come from England directly? And he goes, oh, no. And then there's just this weird, long, uncomfortable pause afterwards where he's just smiling at him. Great. Loved it.
Well, I agree. Dude. Like, I think having a villain like this who doesn't have any connection to anyone, who just, like, Hiram, it was always a little bit tilted by his connection to Veronica. But having just a straight-up villain walk into town, and he starts causing trouble, and he's also, like, a smiling, menacing villain. He's fun in that way. And Archie just doesn't know how to handle him. Like, when he sits down with him in that scene you're talking about, goes, so, you're English. It's just like, we have a real, very basic starting point with the mystery
Archie
here.
is not working with all the tools in his shed this entire episode because he wants to beat up Jughead. Then he wants to beat up
a truck. I mean, come on,
truck.
that's just this.
He ruined his coffee container, which, as we all know, you gotta hold on to that.
Totally. He's just responding with anger nonstop. Maybe it's because Betty's out of town, to keep him even. Something like
100%. I mean, it was not having Betty at all in this episode. No Betty. This was how many episodes have we had with this little amount of Betty in it?
Not many.
It's pretty surprising. I'll throw a theory out at you. This episode, our product sponsorship besides Chime was Benjamin Moore.
Yes.
So maybe since he was eating Doritos last episode, do you think this episode he was eating paint chips?
It sort of checks out. That Benjamin Moore drop in the middle of the episode, I was like, what Riverdale heads out there are just like, yeah, that's my paint brand.
Well, here's the wild thing about that makes, I don't know why this bothered me in an episode where Cheryl is trapped in a mirror dreamscape, but the fact that they're like, oh God, how are we going to get funding for this thing? This is so impossible. The whole town's shutting it down. By the way, Benjamin Moore is sponsoring our paint. There's a little bit of a disconnect there. I feel like maybe they could get some money from, I don't know, Benjamin Moore.
Well, once you get that diner sponsorship, you're going to pay up with some like excellent paint. Yeah. And Benjamin Moore makes some high quality paint. Those houses use multiple colors, which means people are going to be out there buying many buckets.
Those homes were adorable. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and let you guys shit on those adorable homes.
No. I thought those homes were great. I love that idea, and that is a real world idea as well. So I really appreciated bringing that in. And I think my immediate thought was like, you're kind of ignoring the mental health part of helping out the homeless population, but I feel like that probably would have overcomplicated the episode potentially. But I like the tiny house idea, or what are they called? Mini homes? Something like that.
Yeah, I think of those
micro homes.
Micro homes, yeah. It's a great idea. I love it. I don't know if they're going to continue it, but I would live in a little home in the parking lot of Pops. That sounds fun.
Oh, my God. I could just roll out of my mini home, walk into Pops and get food. Oh, fantastic.
Healthy lifestyle for you, Pete.
Yeah.
Living in a diner parking lot, eating exclusively French fries and cheesesteaks.
Shakes? Oh, come on, man. That would be the best.
Yeah. Just watching as Jughead and Tabitha's romance continues. This would be perfect life for you.
Being able to take Tabitha aside and be like, hey, Tabs, you can do better than this. You know what I mean? Like, let's talk about it. I don't understand.
Let's not. No.
Like a reverse romantic comedy.
Yeah.
You're an anti-matchmaker.
Whole tiny homes thing, I think, there were actually like a bunch of very nice shots in this sequence as well, like them outside at night with the tiny homes. There was this lineup. It was also one of the promo stills of everybody standing there like a band in front of them was cool. And then there was that sweet shot after Sketch Alley was cleaned out where they're walking like a superhero team with the light behind them. That was awesome.
Well, and let me say
they're
that
walking where people used to live, and now they're mysteriously gone, like they've been swept away. I don't know if the shot is really the thing we're supposed to be focusing on.
Pete, if I said, "Hey, here's $100, get on this bus," you'd do it right now, wouldn't you?
exactly.
Well, it depends on what kind of, like, how long the bus ride is. Are they going to stop at, like, an A&W or something, or like because some of those truck stop places
they're stopping at an
sweet.
A&W. Get on the bus.
Up a travel plaza,
Yeah, you want to be able to have like a gift shop and a Burger King right in the same spot.
Right there, yeah.
Got you. I thought this episode, just widening out based on that shot you were talking about, it really felt like a more return to form. We talked a little bit last time how the episode there was so much happening, it felt so intense. And this one was a little bit more like everyone's doing their thing. Everyone's sort of working together at different points. Archie's making his usual mistakes. Like it was, this was a nice episode, I thought.
Oh, you thought this was a nice, sweet episode? I felt like this was, a classic kind of Riverdale turned up to 11 insane thing where, poor Kevin gets a hammer to the side of the head.
Really focused on Kevin. This episode was like a beautiful hot fudge sundae
and they just took a giant hose to the homeless problem, and everybody's like, okay, cool.
Why are you assuming the worst? Assume the best. He said this is what they're going to do. I'm sure we're going to check in with them, and Doc will call from his mini home in another town and be like, yeah, I'm doing much better. I'm not in Riverdale anymore. The worst town in America.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, Percival's making a campaign against Riverdale. So this is just one move in his longer quest.
Yeah.
But I was saying this episode was just a great hot fudge sundae. And by that, I mean all hot fudge, no ice cream, with a beautiful little Barchi cherry on top. So yum, yum, I say.
Oh, my God.
Yum, yum.
Should we talk about the Cheryl storyline? Because that's obviously wildly...
Abigail, finally choosing a side here and going in.
Well, let's start. We have...
What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Abigail has been just kind of watching all the craziness, and we're kind of like,
here's what I think. I think Buckhead was your sanity anchor, and with that loose, you're just like,
I don't know what to do.
You don't know what to do.
You're spinning like a top.
Yeah.
And honestly, Pete, I'm concerned for you with no tether to reality. But I do love Barchi, so I gotta have to go with that.
Brief overview of the Cheryl storyline, or at least the Abigail storyline. As mentioned, Britta approaches Nana and says, hey, we got to do something about this. We got to rescue Cheryl. They realize that Cheryl is trapped in some sort of dream world. As we discover, it is her youth, and there's a dreamscape, excuse me. There's a lot that we need to delve into there, but Jason is there, Julian is there, Penelope is there acting like mommy dearest, and ultimately Britta does break her out, reminds her of who she is. She's still trapped in the dream world at the end, but Abigail seems unaware of that, and now Cheryl is going to be working with Britta to get her back. Even though I'm still not 100% bored on the supernatural element, just in terms of a ludicrously over-the-top storyline that was well-filmed and well-acted across the board, love that.
I mean, the outfits alone in the dreamscape were fantastic. It was great to see Cheryl's mom back, and some of the hairstyles, some of the moves. It was hysterical and fantastic and amazing. When Cheryl got to do her power spin move to kind of reveal that she's herself again, I mean, that was just a classic,
strong outfit
amazing
change.
Cheryl, just unbelievable.
I mean, Penelope in this whole series of sequences was awesome. So intense, so wild. Just running around at the end, running around the house, wrecking stuff. Great.
Also, Nana too, like in the hay room, had the cloudy aisle dialed up. I mean, that was some really spooky stuff we were dealing with.
The hay room is called a barn, you city slicker. That's where you keep the hay.
Still not a barn. It is an interior room in the house, very clearly, that has been filled with hay.
It's a barn.
It is not a barn.
Why do you this is it's very funny. You're like Pete, you're being crazy. This bughead has made you crazy. And then you're double down, you're like, that's no barn, I say.
Listen, we all have our things.
Nice. Well, one thing I liked about this episode is where it started with Britta and Nana Rose. And Britta's like, Cheryl? She's like, we got to get Cheryl. And Nana Rose is like, she's in jail. There's no way you can get Cheryl. Oh, yeah. Well, you can always become a dream warrior and walk into her dreams.
But just make sure you wake up first, because otherwise you're in a coma.
I was surprised on that note, Pete, that didn't pay off in any way. Like, I was sure there was going to be a moment when Abigail was going to discover Britta in the dream world, given that little tease there, but it didn't happen.
Well, I think there's room to still do that. I feel like we're still going to get some
Cheryl
dream.
Also came and rescued her. And in what could have been the, oh, crap, you woke up first moment. But it was kind of like Cheryl. So it was a nice kind of like, oh, we don't have to worry about this anymore.
What do we think of the fact that Jason's back there in the dream realm?
Well, now when he's talking, he said another word, which is strange. I did like him, having him sit in. He's so tall and lanky, and having him sit in that crowd of tiny little kids as Penelope is feeding him his cake was very funny.
Yeah.
But on the emotional bent, on the emotional Cheryl side, there was a lot of stuff that I thought was kind of interesting there. We got this younger Cheryl mentioning Heather, who was not her first girlfriend, but the first time she realized she is attracted to women and loved women, and that Heather was sent away, I think, if I remember correctly. She's only been mentioned before, so getting 2 mentions of her again was really interesting. And I do wonder if we are going to actually see Heather in that dreamscape, or see Heather come back in real life at some point. That still feels like a good dramatic thing to hit. And the other one I wanted to throw out to you guys, I feel like this is just a mention and I'm reading too much into it, but at least part of the dreamscape seemed to be from their real history. And there was this exchange at the birthday party. I'm looking for exactly what they said, but whatever it was, I'm not finding it immediately. But basically, Britta asks Penelope, oh, isn't it Cheryl's birthday as well? And Penelope says, not this year. She doesn't get to have a birthday, that spoiled child. There was this weird thing in the first season where very briefly Jason was mentioned as being a year older than Cheryl, even though they're the same age as twins. So I wonder if that's like some sort of backdoor explanation of that thing.
Wow, you're really pulling that apart, huh?
Sure am.
That's for the deeply astute fans. Yeah, exactly. That's for the real obsessive compulsives.
Head to my bulletin board at heyroomtruthers.com. We're talking about that pretty hardcore.
Wow.
See, I grew up in the country, so when people come to town, they're like, can we see your hay room? We just ride them out of town on a rail when that happens. As Penelope, as a wall walker, it makes a lot of sense why she can so easily slip into becoming a mirror warrior.
Yeah.
Here.
No need to explain.
Well, I don't think that was the real Penelope necessarily. That wasn't the real Jason. Penelope was sort of an avatar, magical guard created by Abigail, right?
I think that's right, yes. Cheryl, however, I think is fully back. Like, to see her here at the end of
Which
this.
Which is upsetting because, like, I was really hoping Abigail was going to fight for Toni and make some magic happen.
I think that's still going to happen.
It's still going to happen.
Yeah. I think what we're heading towards, though, because we have both Cheryl and Abigail, is we're going to get Madeline Petch is going to totally Jean-Claude Van Damme out and fight herself at some point, which I'm very excited about.
What?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Are you talking about when Jean-Claude Van Damme had a twin brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was always fighting himself in
Double
movies.
Impact or whatever that was?
Double Impact. I think he did it in Universal Soldier as well. A couple more times. Jet Li in The One. Is that better?
Okay.
I didn't know you were such a JCVD guy, Alex. Just dropping the casually dropping.
Constantly bringing up Tommy Boy and rom-coms that nobody's seen. And I mentioned one Jean-Claude Van Damme thing. And he's like, I'm not on board with this.
Yeah. I mean, those movies were all right. All right. Well, it's cool.
Great.
It's cool, man.
Those movies were great. Well received.
Oh, definitely well received. Critical darling Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Whatever it is, I think we're going to see Cheryl fight Abigail at some point, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And I also think we're going to see Abigail in this episode. Toni shouts back at Percival for mentioning his history. And she's like, oh, when your ancestor wiped out my entire tribe. And Abigail gives her a look. She likes it. She likes Toni still. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that moment also, the theory that I invented at the beginning of this podcast, that maybe this Percival is immortal. It's the same guy. We've talked a lot about
immortal. There, when the Iceman went to do some research, there would be something on him, but there's nothing. It's like he only just existed. He walked in this town and started to exist like there's nothing before.
Or
so you think he's a baby? I'm saying immortal, and you're saying he's a brand new baby.
Yeah, Riverdale is the baby. You know what I mean? Like, do you exist before Riverdale or after Riverdale?
Sorry, real quick. Were you hitting the head with a hammer before we started doing it? Because maybe that's why the Kevin thing really resonated with you, because it's hard to follow you.
Was that the first time you saw yourself on screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
Got hammered.
I'll throw out an alternate theory. I don't know. I mean, he could be immortal, and that's totally fine. He could be the devil or Satan or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is totally at the end of the episode. Over the course of the episode, we do find out that he has the power of persuasion, and he has that great scene where Jughead is interviewing him, and he knows Jughead is in his mind.
Yeah.
Love that.
Great.
So much fun.
That was a very cool moment. I also love that scene because we find out that Gandhi was the original Archie in Riverdale.
Mm-hmm.
When they're
Pete
talking
just doesn't
about
like
it.
this at all, Pete. Gandhi was another movie, Pete, like around the Jean-Claude
Gandhi didn't go
Van Damme
around
era.
punching trucks. I tell you that much.
No, Gandhi was known as a truck
That poor
puncher.
truck didn't do anything but give you, place to get.
Give you a ride.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even put words together anymore.
Wow, so your two number one characters that you're bereft about this episode were Kevin Keller and Archie's truck.
Yep.
And a truck. Yep.
A truck, not even Archie's truck, just a
Just a random truck, really.
Yeah. I think it was
Seems
Archie's
like it's
truck.
his. Yeah, it's his truck. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the Percival Pickens of it all. I did want to throw out an alternate theory. At the end of the episode, we see him, after he's manipulated everything to his way, sitting and looking at this board of everybody, not just Jughead and Betty and Archie, but all of our main characters. And he smiles a little bit. This is based on almost nothing. What if he's like a power eater? And what I mean by that is like a very comic book. He absorbs and takes people's powers into himself, and that's where his power comes from.
What the fuck?
That's cool. I like this theory, and I think that
Where did you pull that from?
That dovetails nicely with my theory, because I think that's what keeps him immortal and alive all this time. So he shows up to town, like Pete said. Pete, you're part of this. Right as soon as the kids have the gang has powers, Percival shows up because he's hungry. And he's gonna dine on their little juicy powers.
So he's like a power vampire type thing. Pete, this is a really good theory you came up with.
No.
Yeah.
All right. First of all, I can't stand you guys drooling over this supervillain like he's so cool just because he smiles and winks. He's completely destroying people's lives.
Wink.
And you guys are like, oh, he's so charming. Fuck this fucking...
Tell you what, Percival
evil,
Pickens is
horrible
the true
person.
hero of Riverdale.
That's true.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Did you hear him, Pete? I trying to do some research on this, but I think he has like a British accent, which is really cool. He might be English.
We should look further into this.
Yeah, exactly.
I did want to say, though, the Iceman being like, hey, don't worry, I'll just put this guy in New Jersey and it'll be fine.
Well, let's talk about the Veronica.
Sure. So the Veronica storyline is Veronica and Reggie are deciding not to do scabs, which is really bumming Reggie out because he wants to do scabs.
Poor Reg.
And
he says the word scams too many times in this episode.
Oh my God.
Reg is
I thought that
having
was so
fun
funny.
in this episode.
Yeah,
It's very fun.
Scams?
He loves scams.
Yeah.
Can we do some scams? Let's do some scams.
Who calls it scabs? I mean, that's the reason that I liked it, is him calling them scabs was so ridiculous.
Well, especially when you're like, let's do a scam. Here's our first scam. Hiding this body that is hanging in our casino. It's like, that's not a scam.
Oh, you rapscallions.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I saw
kids.
that. Wasn't that an episode of the Apple Dumpling Gang where they found the guy hanging in the casino and had to hide the body?
Yeah, the little rascals were always like, hey, we got to ditch this corpse. What do you think, dog, with a patch over its eye?
Oh,
Woof,
come
woof.
on, man.
I'll eat the corpse. I'm a dog. Hey, that's the little rascals.
So they try not to do scabs, and then Alice is very mean to Veronica.
Yes.
To the point of being
Alice
rude.
just going off for no reason. Like, what the fuck?
Can we talk about the fact that, like, granted, Veronica called a hit on her father, but there's that. But as far as we know, she had the funeral for her father yesterday, and everybody was like, A, we're not coming to the funeral, and then B, they're like, you suck and you're just like your father. This was very rough on Veronica this episode.
Yeah, and she's clearly struggling with all of that. She's like, let's just give up on this legacy. And then she's like, let's put Hiram's picture up here to show people.
Behind you, Reggie, where you sit.
Let's put this picture up to show people what we're not, which I think is a fine strategy. That's why I have a painting.
That's a mixed message. That's a mixed message.
You think so? Oh, yeah. I wouldn't think that. That's why I have a huge painting.
A painting of somebody.
Wait, hold on. I want
to
hear what Justin has painting of.
I have a huge painting of Bughead right here on the wall, just as a reminder of what we are not. What we are not.
Wow, that was better than I expected.
I got you. You're trying to burn me, and I burned you
at the end. Maybe he's turning the corner on Bughead.
Listen, they're really putting in the work here to push Veronica and by extension Reggie, because I think like he's
different.
It's
meeting,
a reminder of what we're
different not. Meeting.
Yeah. Different meeting. Wow. I can't parse either of these meetings. It's too complicated. They're really putting in the work here to push Veronica into the Hiram role, and she's doing like very much the like, fine, you want a villain? I'll be your villain type thing. But like, I'm not on board with it. I want better for Veronica. I want maybe this is a more comfortable place for her in terms of the writing and the way that they're sending it. But like, she's been so on the side of everything for 5+ seasons now. The fact that everybody else is like, ooh, we have superpowers and we're dealing with this supervillain who came into town, and she's like, well, I'm running my casino. It's just another thing that puts her on her own track and separates her from everybody else when I want to see her interacting with the other characters. I want to see her. What are you going to say, Justin?
I was going to say, I feel like that's because the show is holding sort of the reconciling the Betty, Veronica, Archie stuff. And so until they do that, she can't really be in the mix with everyone else because it would complicate that.
I don't know if you're aware, like Cheryl and Veronica are kind of like wrecking balls. When they're involved, they just kind of bulldoze and kind of like, so every once in a while you got to hold them back a little bit, give them something else to do so they can kind of like, be in their own little thing. Don't worry, they'll get back into the swing of things.
But I'll throw something out at you, and maybe this is exactly what you're getting at, Justin. But when Archie goes to Toni and Tabitha and says, hey, as two prominent business owners, I would love to have you sponsor tiny houses, which I thought was great. And I loved Toni and Tabitha together. I loved Tabitha being in a storyline that was separate from Jughead for the most part. Yeah. I thought that was really good as well. That's something we've asked for a lot.
Although it felt like Archie was kind of like over-nicing it, where Tabitha was like, yeah, I'm still in.
It was fine. It was much weirder while we're getting far afield with Toni. It was like, I don't know if this is going to properly represent my gang bar.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't have the White Worm's name on this tiny house.
This is too adorable.
But Veronica is also a business owner, and she owns multiple businesses, including, I guess I'm not keeping track of it, I think including Pops and the White Worm. So, like, if she still owns them, I'm not 100% clear on that. But, like, that feels like
she gave them up.
Yeah,
I think she gave up those businesses.
She lost them.
Oh, did
she owns the jewelry store still?
She owns the jewelry store, which was burgled, so maybe she doesn't own that anymore. But very briefly, there was the stock firm that was behind the jewelry store, which was a front for the casino. So I don't know how that's working. My point being that there was a way, and this is just like totally fanficking it, but there was a way for Archie to be like, I've got this tiny house thing and we need money. You have a casino that you need to make legit. Let's work together on this. But I understand why that did happen. It gets back to the thing I was saying, where I think they are separating Veronica even further from everybody. But in my mind, that's a little bit of a bummer because it felt like that solution is right there. I like the characters working together. So again, just my little fanfic there, but it's a direction they could have gone in if they wanted to.
Well, I think that's kind of like, to me, Veronica is best when she kind of has Archie to kind of like tamp down her evil side a little bit and be like, hey, let's help the community. Let's help the town. We could use instead of you going off on a crazy plan, like, let's try to, help Riverdale.
Do you think Reggie shouting scabs every 5 minutes is hurting that for her?
I do. Okay. Although I'm having a great time with it.
Totally.
Also, Reggie's cut to the chase much was just, very enjoyable with Reggie, he's the Iceman. He's the Iceman. He doesn't do small talk.
Reggie is sort of a better Archie for Veronica, I think, because he isn't as much of a wild card. He's sort of a little bit more focused on their actual business. I still love their perhaps budding relationship. We got to see how Geraldo is going to join.
Yeah,
this.
He seems there full time now. Like, he's just a member of the casino. He's inviting in wise guys, which was also very funny and blunt. But yeah, do you think there's going to be potentially a little bit of a romance thing between Geraldo and Veronica? Potentially.
It feels that way, but again, the way Geraldo's set up is like, he's just like a random guy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, he doesn't
have the same like vibe as Reggie or any of the other sort of main characters. He feels very much.
Well, what about, do you think there's going to be any romance between Veronica and that big old nerd who came in to tell them about the body?
There's a body in there. That's an inter-office romance, if so.
Big old nerd.
We'll see what happens.
How dare you?
We've definitely skipped past a bunch of things that happened in this episode, but what else do you guys want to call out that we can talk about?
Well, I think should we talk about the end a little bit with just the Betty and like what and the murder board, but Betty coming back.
Having a TV show that kind of like, hey, what I'd miss, and just like trying to recap Riverdale even to Betty as she's been away for a day is hilarious.
Yeah, shout out to Lily Reinhardt in particular for reactions there, being like, whoa, really?
Yeah.
What?
I like that. And honestly,
this is my first time in Riverdale. You don't say.
The Barchi relationship as a place where they really come home to each other and decompress after their day of building houses and fighting serial killers. It's beautiful.
No.
What
she
do you
can't
think?
even have the lights on. She can't even. This relationship is literally killing her.
Nothing happens with relationships in the dark. You're correct.
Yeah, exactly. It's way easier to have the lights
she
just
gets
off.
a headache as soon as any kind of light.
Yeah,
there's only one cure for a headache.
That's why I'm married to a lighthouse keeper.
Smart.
Got to keep the lights on all the time. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like very intense light.
What do you think TBK is doing in Maine? She lost him in Maine. Do you think it was like we stopped off for some lobster or something?
Yeah, lobster roll. Yeah, yeah. You got to. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Normally in Maine,
I murder humans, but now I'm going to murder this lobster roll. Nom 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 nom.
Do you have a napkin? I'll throw it away. I'm a trash bag man.
Yeah, I got my own trash bags. They're duct taped on me, but I can,
Vacation land, you say? Okay, I'll come up here. I don't need to kill for a couple.
My real name, it's Dennis. I'm a guy named Dennis. The stuff with Betty at the end is interesting. Like we talked about, I wonder if it is going to potentially get worse.
What if now at the end we see Percival has all of the main cast headshots on their wall? I feel like he could be hunting them as a power sucker, or he could be a casting agent who put together the TV show Riverdale, and he's like, just wanted to pop by to see how it's going.
Could be that. I really liked.
I'll give these kids their start.
Yeah.
While I'm looking through our notes here, I really liked the villagers of Riverdale, just sort of like the hubbub that was going on when Jughead was listening in on everything, because they're always like, "Oh, that sounds bad. That's terrible."
Yeah. Taxes. Oh no, no taxes. I like low taxes, not high taxes.
Taxes.
I wanted someone to be like, "I want some lasagna right now." Some sort of random thing.
Like, I know they need to do this for TV, and I don't actually have a problem with this, but the clarity with which Jughead is hearing everybody's thoughts is off the charts.
Yeah, he's very good. He's very powerful.
He is. Another thing I wrote down. Cheryl saying delightsome. Actually, Abigail saying delightsome as she walked in, and just all of Abigail's language throughout the episode is ludicrous. Like, just not even true to the period or anything like that. It's just messing up words all over the place, and it's very fun.
I really love the Cheryl kind of mini Cheryl team up here. This is really going to be fun when they kind of get out of the dreamscape.
Yeah. And what did you think about Bingo showing up, Pete? He ate some dog food in this episode.
Lovely.
Yeah. Good stuff.
What does it mean? How many legs were broken from Bingo today? Our Bingo leg counter is not updated.
I did look at them. Like, when he patted in there on his tiny little dog feet, I was like, 4 legs, look all good. 4
Looking
legs,
good,
look
Bingo.
all good.
I did really enjoy, just to skip around a little bit and talk about favorite parts, when Reggie threw down like a steno pad and a pen, was like, I crunched the numbers, and business-wise, we're not doing good. I was like, really, Reg? You crunched the numbers, did you? Oh,
he crunches numbers.
Yeah,
He's a number cruncher.
He's good at it. We already established that. What did you think about right back at the beginning of the episode when we're getting that montage? Seems like Alice and Frank have moved forward with their relationship. It's the morning. They're together. They're having breakfast.
I know. I'm never with anyone in the morning unless I'm in a deep physical relationship with them. Noon's for friends. The afternoon's for friends. The morning's for lovers.
Wow.
Pete, how do you feel about that? Are you into the Frank and Alice relationship?
I mean, I'm more of an Palace guy, but
Really?
I'm glad Alice is happy.
I don't know. It seems to be bringing out the absolute worst in her. So,
oh yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So maybe it's not a good team up.
Do you think Percival's going to go in and mess this up? I feel like he may use Alice because of her television influence on the public access station, I guess.
Sure.
But I feel like there's a chance he may get in the middle between Frank and Alice.
Yeah, I could see that happen. I mean, I think he's going to get in the middle of everybody, right? First thing we'll probably see the next episode is whatever reason he's going to be a deputy in the police department, which is just weird.
I really
British
hope
deputy?
Archie makes some time for
Bobby?
Jughead to finally sit down and talk, because that was getting a little like, hey, we should talk. More insane things happen. Hey, can you pencil me in later next week sometime?
No, they did talk. They talked between seeds. So
Yeah, it happened off panel.
Yeah, Jughead talked to Archie about his mind powers and Percival and everything, and that's what he was bringing Betty up to speed on at the end of the episode. But, I'm looking forward to seeing the 3 of them at least working together. I still would love to bring Veronica into that mix, but I don't know. At least they're all together on stuff. That's good. Before we wrap up here, why don't we talk about the MVP of the episode? Justin, who is your MVP this episode?
Oof. Great episode. Lots of things happening. I think I got to give it up to Reggie. I think in this episode, just his dedication to scams really warmed my heart.
Nice.
He truly is the littlest rascal.
I'm going to say Penelope this episode. Loved Penelope in this episode. She's always great, but she was so over the top. It was basically like, just let Natalie Bolt go. Absolutely insane. Very, very fun. Terrifying, but very fun. Pete, what about you? Who's your MVP?
Britta finally choosing a side was huge. And also Kevin before he got hammered. It was guys, come on, stop.
Kevin
stop
before he got hammered.
After he got hammered, you didn't like him anymore?
I'm just so worried about Kevin, and you can't keep doing this to him. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Wow,
really
it's
sad at the end there.
emotional
I
end.
agree with you. He will see. Clearly, he's getting some sort of a plot line next episode that's going to bring him into conflict with Toni and Fangs. So that should be interesting to see. And if you would like to support this podcast, patreon.com/comic book club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Riverdale. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Riverdale Dark on Twitter, Riverdale After on Instagram, Riverdale After Dark on Facebook. comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, we'll see you after dark.
And now it's time for corrections. Just a couple quick notes here, folks. A barn is what Nana Rose is in. It's a place where hay is. I said What Women Want came out in the 90s. It came out in the year 2000. You don't need to watch that movie. And everything Pete said was weird.